Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Danielle Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Vegas 7, Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday night in Las Vegas, Nevada. The former champion, the future Hall of Famer, Frankie the Answer Edgar, dropping to his third weight class. And he's got no cupcake in his bantamweight debut because he's taking on the always dangerous Pedro the Punisher Munhoz.
This is a great fight, man, because Frankie Edgar, he's the legend, the former 55 champ, multiple title chances at 145 pounds. A lot of people been saying that he's been a bantamweight his whole career, so we're going to find out on Saturday. He is getting up there in age. This probably is the tail end of his career, so we got to appreciate every time we get to see Frankie in there. And Pedro Munhoz, man, this guy under the radar, just one of the more exciting bantamweights that's come along in the UFC over the last decade, man. He finishes after finishes. He ain't, going out here to, play pitter patter and win decisions. He's out here trying to snap necks off and knock guys out. So, Pedro Munhoz is no slouch, top 5 guy stamp. So I'm excited. It's a tough test for Frankie.
Yeah, look, Pedro Munhoz has slowly been building up his resume at 135 pounds, wins over Robbie Font, finishes over Robbie Font, the former champ Cody Garbrandt, Brian Caraway, and even beat Brett Johnson there, had a great fight with Aljamain Sterling. So he's going to welcome Frankie Edgar to the bantamweight division with some serious heat Saturday night, Shaq.
And bantamweight division, man, that's like, honestly, after lightweight, that you could make a case that's the next best division. There's so many guys in that division that are looking good. So, if Frankie wins, man, it's going to even get tougher from here. So,
Yeah, no questions asked. Definitely no slouch to take on in his debut. No cupcake, no gimme fight. It's going to have to get right down to the fire with Pedro Munhoz. We're going to have to see if that durability is going to hold up. So I can't wait. And Shaq, let's get right down to business because first up in an 140-pound catchweight, we got a matchup between Timur Valiev, he's 16-2, and Trevin Jones is 12-6. Currently, they got Timur Valiev minus 410. The comeback on Trevin Jones is plus 365. Well, Shaq, this is an interesting fight because obviously Timur Valiev, people have wanted to see him make his UFC debut for a very long time. And this is a guy who knows what he's got to do to go out there and get the win. When it's time to spin, he can spin. When it's time to pick you up and slam you on the mat, he knows how to do that too. So this guy knows how to go out there, do the Russian coast. And I feel like he's got all the tools to come out here and win this fight. And when you talk about a guy like Trevin Jones, I mean, he's solid. He hits hard. It's just I feel like he fights too close with a lot of his opponents, man. And then taking this fight off a year layoff and on a week short notice, I feel like he's definitely losing the decision here, And interestingly enough, a lot of his regional fights were actually over there in Japan. I was surprised he didn't do much in the United States. He was over there overseas. So he's got a lot of experience, but come into the UFC on short notice against a guy like Timur, I think it's a little bit too much too soon. So I'm going with Timur Valiev, a unanimous decision here.
Yeah, man, Timur Valiev, I think we all remember from the early days of World Series of Fighting, and man, he's a solid guy. He's super well-rounded, very fast, very agile. He's got the scrambling ability. I wouldn't say he's the best Russian, but in this particular matchup with the circumstances that, Trevin's in, the week short notice, and Valiev, he was getting ready for a fight not too long ago versus Emmers, man. So he's been in that training rhythm, getting ready for a fight for a while now. So I just think he's the better fighter overall. It's hard to prepare for that Russian coast, style, that Russian rhythm on such short notice, man. So I think Trevin's probably going to be a little hesitant, probably just get frustrated the whole night and lose this decision. So, yeah, I got to go with Timur.
Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Matthew Semelsberger, he's 6-2, and Carlton Minus is 10-1. Currently, they got Carlton minus 110. The comeback on Matthew Semelsberger is plus 100. Well, Shaq, I really like the original matchup between Matthew Semelsberger and Phil Rowe. I thought that was a great UFC debut for Phil Rowe. I thought he's a serious prospect. He's going to come out here and make some noise. And for some reason, both Phil Rowe and Jared Nitrain Gooden had to pull out of their UFC debut. So we're going to have a serious word with both those guys because I don't know what kind of sparring they're doing down there in Florida that both of them had to pull out of their UFC debuts. You know what I mean, Shaq? But with that being said, one thing I like about Matthew Semelsberger is he hits like a truck. You know, his last fight against Richard Patashnuck, I know you remember Patashnuck because he fought Gaethje. Gaethje absolutely destroyed him. Well, Matthew Semelsberger destroyed him too, man. Beautiful elbow knockout. It's just I feel like he's a little bit green, needs some more seasoning on the regional scene, you know what I mean? And you know, he's only 6-2. His wrestling isn't the best, but he hits like a truck. He's got that going for him. And with Carlton Minus, kind of reminds me of like a young Randy Brown. You know, he's got like the same body type. He's long, loves to pump out that jab. His takedown defense isn't the best either, but his get-up game is pretty decent. And I feel like he's got a little bit too much volume for Semelsberger. It's just that, and more experience too. It's just that he's got to be careful of the power because Matthew can definitely crack. The kid hits like a truck, but I'm going to lean Carlton Minus via decision here.
Yeah, Carlton Minus. He seems like he's the more talented guy, you know, longer, like you said, likes to pump out the jab. He fought Rick Story in PFL, you know, he came up short there, but you know, that's somewhat of a tough test, you know, for a guy with, you know, short that many short fights. So, you know, Semelsberger, he's got the power, and I see Minus. I see it being a close fight just because Semelsberger might have the power to, you know, kind of make him a little hesitant to let off on that volume. But I see Minus, as long as he doesn't get wobbled, you know, in 2 of these 3 rounds, I see him landing more punches and just, you know, having the more volume type of style. So I'll go with him.
Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Ike Villanueva. He's 16-10. And Jordan, the Beverly Hills Ninja Wright, is 10-1. Currently, they got Jordan Wright minus 117. The comeback on Ike Villanueva is plus 107. Well, Shaq, I didn't expect we'd ever see the Beverly Hills Ninja in the UFC, let alone favored to win a fight in the UFC, Shaq.
I mean, to be honest, man, this is, I don't want to say a low moment, but I mean, when you got, I mean, you saw Beverly Hills Ninja's Contender Series fight. I mean, that was bad. And I mean, you know, Beverly Hills Ninja, like, you know, it's kind of, it's an interesting nickname. And then Ike, man, he's just a punching bag, sloppy. But I'm gonna take Ike for the win, man. You know, I think he's probably been training a little bit longer. You know, he's had opponents, you know, for a while now, and Jordan Wright stepping in. And Jordan Wright's an 85er, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, I'll go with Ike, man. But let's just be honest here. We've seen more high level fights in the NFC, man. This is you know, this is a sloppy fight. So we'll see what happens. But I'm gonna go with Ike for the win, man. I think he's got better circumstances, more size, and I think he'll outwill Jordan.
Yeah, I'd never expected to see Jordan Wright in the UFC ever, period. And like, he's an 85er, like you said. I know Ike's formerly an 85er too, but like, when I say that Jordan Wright's an 85er, he weighed in at 200 pounds today, Shaq. Not 201, not 202, not 203. 200 on the dot. He's too small for the weight class, and I don't think the kid has the toughness to compete in the UFC. When he's the hammer, he can take care of biz on the regional scene. You know, his last fight, he looked a lot better. Granted, he didn't get hit one time, so that's probably why, and he fought a journeyman. But here against Ike, this is probably the only fight Ike's going to win in his UFC career, so I'm going to pick Ike via knockout, and then we can have the discussion of fading Ike his very next fight. So I'm going to go with the bar brawler, Ike Villanueva here. But now there's no more games to be played, because next up in the 55-pound division, we got a matchup between Austin Hubbard, he's 12-4, and Joe Solecki is 9-2. Currently, wow, it's a pick 'em. Currently, they got Austin Hubbard minus 107, Joe Solecki minus 103. So everyone's been going back and forth on this fight. You going with the conditioning and the durability of Hubbard, or the black belt jiu-jitsu of Joe Solecki?
Yeah, this is a good matchup because, you know, Solecki, he's a specialist. We know he's got the high level jiu-jitsu game, and you know what his MO is to get it to the ground. And he looked very good against Matt Wyman. But as you should look good against Matt Wyman, you know what I'm saying? You know, you should dominate. I think Solecki is hard to deal with for certain guys, just with because the fact that he's a serious black belt, and he's got some tricks up his sleeve down there, man. His control is very good. The one thing I'll say where he's lacking in his grappling game, I think his takedowns aren't as good as his jiu-jitsu control. I think at times I've seen him, well, even though he did get the takedowns against Wyman, there was a couple of ones where I'm like, a better guy could possibly stuff that, So, I think that if Selecki we know he's not a striker. We know he doesn't like getting hit, but as long as he, in this matchup with Hubbard, and Hubbard's more of a volume, like he kind of gets better as the fight progresses. He kind of made Ramos and Marco Madsen kind of tire out in the late rounds. Both those guys are very good grapplers, and I'll be honest, Hubbard. I mean, those guys got on his back, and he got out of it. So there's a good chance he probably avoids the submission, but can he stay off his back, for 2 of the 3 rounds and start to land the volume strikes on Selecki? I don't know, man. I don't think so. He throws a lot of low kicks, which are good, but in this particular matchup, man, I think he's going to need to, keep it primarily boxing. But I will say Hubbard, man, he kind of, we used to joke around, call him harmless Hubbard. He's a tough kid, man. And, I heard him say he's kind of, in the past, he kind of struggled with his confidence because, he's in there sparring with Gaethje and Dober and Magny and all these guys. And he's probably not having much success. And look at his UFC run, man. They threw him to Ramos right off the bat. He's fighting fucking Olympic wrestlers and shit. So maybe his confidence is a little better since he made that kid quit, So, we'll see. But I lean Selecki, man. I just think his path to victory, we've seen Hubbard taken down, out grappled a couple times, and I do think Selecki is good enough to execute that game plan. It's just I'm not sure if Selecki is as comfortable on the feet in comparison to those other guys. So we'll see. But I'm gonna go with Selecki for the win. I think he just gets more takedowns and probably controls him, takes his back for a round, and gets off to a big lead and gets the win.
Yeah, look, I like Selecki, and Hubbard's kind of grown on me too. Like you said, we used to joke around, harmless Hubbard, this and that. And I think the reason why is because, like, in that Madsen fight, he clearly loses the first 2 rounds. And in that 3rd round, where he was actually praised for what he did, I actually kind of criticized him because it's like you have this opponent dead to rights. You've clearly lost the first 2 rounds. Like, winning the 3rd round is not enough. You got to go out there and do some damage. You got to go out there and finish the guy. And then also against Max Frodkov, he didn't actually knock him out. The kid quit between rounds. It said the kid, TKO retirement. And when they say TKO retirement, I know officially it's referring to him not answering the bell between the 2nd and 3rd, but what it really means is that he retired from fighting permanently, because you'll never see this kid fight ever again. I guarantee you that, Shaq. But anyways, even Max Frodkov was going out there and taking down Austin Hubbard. But man, Austin was cracking him with some shots, man. Those body shots, those left hooks, the calf kicks. I like what Austin Hubbard's been doing. He's been improving a lot. And one thing about him, he's got good conditioning, great pace, training up there, Denver and the Rocky Mountains and that Denver elevation. So he's definitely going to be making improvements. It's just with Joe Selecki, he's a serious black belt. He really is a good black belt. And I agree with you. We do have some criticism in the stand-up. Sometimes he closes his eyes a bit in those pocket exchanges. But luckily, Hubbard doesn't have the one-punch power of like a Nicholas Mata, who actually went out there and knocked out Selecki. And shout out to our good friend Robert Hale, who knocked out Nicholas Mata. You guys got to watch that fight. Amazing one-round fight. But back to this. Joe Selecki, I think he's going to get the takedowns early and often. It's just about what happens after that. Is Hubbard going to survive and get back up and take over late? If that's the case, Selecki needs to make sure he survives that 3rd round. But there's been a lot of criticism of Selecki's fight against Matt Wyman, and I kind of honestly don't really understand it. I watched it today, and to me, every round was a 10-8. He dominated him bell to bell. So I get he didn't finish him, but it's like Matt Wyman's never been finished ever by a submission. Matt Wyman hasn't been submitted his entire career. So I don't really hold it against Selecki that he didn't go out there and submit him. But I think here with Hubbard, it's a little bit different. And I understand Hubbard survived against Davi Hamosh, but it's like Davi Hamosh felt so unthreatened by Hubbard that he was actually out there testing his stand-up. You know what I mean? So I think Selecki's going to have a lot of success here. He might get a first-round submission, but if he doesn't, I think he can at least get the takedowns in the first two, win those, survive the third, go out there and win this fight. So I'm going to go with Joe Selecki as well. Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Mizuki Inoue, she's 14-5, and Amanda Lemos is 7-1. Currently, they got Mizuki Inoue -115 and Amanda Lemos is +105. Well, Shaq, Amanda Lemos dropped 2 weight classes. And for someone who's been criticized for their cardio, you know for a fact that if you're dropping 2 weight classes, the big focus is running those extra miles, dieting, eating clean. And she's been doing this camp in the New Mexico elevation. So I don't think the cardio is going to be an issue. However, do you think the experience of Mizuki Inoue will be a problem here for Lemos?
Yeah, Lemos, man, she looked really good her last fight, the underdog. A lot of people don't know this, but Lemos, man, she's from that Amazon. She actually, her and Davison, the champ, 125, Deus, man, they actually grew up together as kids. So, Waleed Ismail, and I seen them hyping her up on IG the other day, saying that this is his next 115-pound star. So we'll see what she's got. Because in a way, man, to be honest, I was going in expecting to be like, she's probably just, some harmless little girl. But man, I was surprised, man. She's got some very good hands, and her punch count is very, very high, man. And she's got a lot of experience. Beat Viviane Pereira, fought Jandiroba, beat Beck Rollins, went to split with Carolina and Grasso at a very young age, like 19, 20. So, Mizuki Inoue is definitely very, very seasoned. Man, it's tough to say because, we're she did drop 2 weight classes, and we only saw around against Granger. But man, it kind of does make me feel like, does this girl, she's got that same Marajo, fighting style, the karate stance, like, similar stance like Davidson. Like, there's a chance where she overwhelms these girls with the speed, the athleticism, the power. There's a very good chance. My only concern is I still have yet to see her go, 3 rounds in this weight class. Not saying that she can't do it, but the cardio is still a concern of mine in this matchup, just because Inoue, man, throws a lot of punches. Like, Inoue pressures her opponents, man. Like, she's got a very underrated boxing, and she's not the strongest or the most physical, but man, she moves forward and she keeps the volume up. And her last fight, I was kind of shocked that was a split decision. I thought she won every single round in that fight, and that was on a short notice up a weight class. And man, Inoue's been putting in that work. I noticed she moved to she's from Japan. She moved to New York. She's training with Sterling and Merab and Weidman and all these guys. She's got Longo in the corner. So, man, it seems like she's taking things seriously. I know Lemos is a very, very popular dog, but, man, I'm going to go the other way. I think she's going to struggle the first round, maybe get calf kicked a little bit, but I see Inoue marching forward the last 2 rounds and just throwing more punches, and I do think Lemos will start to slow down. So I actually think Inoue is going to come out here and surprise a lot of people. And man, Sarah Longo, man, they've been on a roll lately. So I'm gonna go with Inoue for a decision win, 29-28.
Yeah, look, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions when people analyze this fight. The first one being, they bring up this Jandiroba fight as evidence that, she went to split with Jandiroba. And it's like, well, if you watch that fight, the fact that it was a split is one of the worst scorecards we've ever seen, for me personally, in the history of the sport, because I scored it 5-0 Jandiroba. So the fact that one judge scored it 4-1 Inoue, I thought was absolutely disgusting, man. Like, if you get held down for 5 straight rounds, how the fuck can a judge justify you winning 4-1? But that being said, Lemos does not have, the black belt of Jandiroba, so it's a different situation. But I was noticing people saying, she went to split with Jandiroba. It's like, but did she really go to split with Jandiroba? Now, the other thing is, people are criticizing Lemos for that performance against Leslie Smith, and to me, it's like, dude, she was 2 weight classes above where she should be. So obviously she was carrying some extra weight, some extra fat. Obviously she gassed out quicker. But in order to address that, I mean, for you to cut down to 2 weight classes below, that means you have to focus on your cardio and your conditioning. And to take it a step further, she has been in New Mexico elevation. So like if you put her Leslie Smith fight and her Miranda Granger fight on 2 separate windows, 2 separate screens, and you look at her, you won't even recognize her. It's 2 completely different people. So I feel like she's going to perform a lot better here. It's just that the experience of Inoue has to count for something, and she pushes a pace that is really serious. She's durable. So I do actually agree with you. I do think that, Mizuki can come out here and kind of out hustle these like last 2 rounds, but I think it's going to be close. And I think if people got in on Lemos like plus 150, I think that's a solid bet. But since so much action is coming on her, now I feel like the value is kind of on Inoue, but it's a close fight. I'll take Inoue for a close decision. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Danielle Rodriguez, he's 12-1, and Dwight Grant is 10-2. Currently, they got Danielle Rodriguez minus 210. The comeback on Dwight Grant is plus 175. Well, Shaq, it's an interesting fight because it's like with Dwight Grant, I thought he was going to lose to Jared. I like the plus 160 on Jared. I thought he was going to come out here and outwork him. And then the other guy that replaced Jared, Callan Bourne, I was actually going to bet Grant. I was going to actually bet the under 2.5 or the under 1.5. I thought Grant was going to sleep that guy, knock him into the 10th row. But now with Danielle Rodriguez, it's kind of similar to the Jared fight in the sense that if Grant doesn't land that knockout blow, he might actually get out-volumed in this spot, Shaq.
Yeah, Rodriguez, he kind of surprised everyone against Means in his debut, and then he fought the late notice replacement his last fight. And he's got very underrated boxing, solid boxing. He's a lefty. Grant's kind of low volume, but just explosive power, like leaping in type of shots. And Grant's a specialist at that, man. He was losing the Pedro fight the first round and, was able to get the vicious KO. But we know what happened in that auto fight. Me and you both know that he won that fight. It's just, in Milwaukee, you can't just, have these big spurts where you're not throwing anything. And he has that, pretty much every single fight until he throws, So, Dwight Grant, man, he's a kind of specialist, a power punching specialist. I definitely think, man, as long as Rodriguez doesn't get caught with one of those vicious haymakers, but we got to forget, man, we can't forget Dwight Grant's coming off a major shoulder surgery that he got in the Juban fight. He is kind of more on the older side, even though he doesn't have that many fights. And he's been out since Holloway and Dustin fought. So, this is a big, quite the layoff for Dwight Grant. I'm interested to see how he looks in this fight. But I think Rodriguez is tough enough to stay upright if he gets clipped. I think he's gonna definitely throw more punches, land more punches. I think he could press Grant. It's just a matter of not letting those haymakers land. So I'm gonna go with Rodriguez for the decision win. But man, maybe he's a little hesitant to throw because he knows what's coming back. It's just that Grant has these big, even the Juban fight. I mean, we bet on him in that fight, but I mean that was kind of a shit fight. I know he hurt his shoulder, but it's the same. The deal with Grant. Unless he knocks somebody the fuck out, it's gonna be close.
But man, the thing with Grant is when he knocks people out, when he gets you, he gets you. He lays people out. He launches them into the 10th row, man.
I mean, Carlo Pedersoli got so fucked up that he was thinking it was an early stoppage and shit. He was like, "What happened?"
Yeah, I mean, he was still trying to fight the ref, but it's funny because I hear people saying that Dwight Grant got lucky that he won the decision against Alan Juban, and the way I view it is Alan Juban's lucky he didn't get launched into the 5th row. That's what I think. That's the only lucky part about that fight because I scored a 2-1 for Dwight Grant. But look, I think Dwight Grant's kind of underrated, man. Obviously, he hits like a truck. He's deceptively long for the weight class. I don't think his takedown defense is that bad. I like his sprawl. He spent a lot of years at AKA working on his wrestling, even though it's American Kickboxing Academy, but it's really AWA, American Wrestling Academy. I don't know why they're called Kickboxing Academy. It should be Wrestling Academy, but you get the point. But I'm glad to see him back. We're going to have to see how he performs off this shoulder surgery. And I feel like Danielle Rodriguez is also really underrated. I feel like people kind of stereotype Danielle Rodriguez a little bit, because he's got the shaved head. He's got the neck tattoos. So people think he's just this Mexican brawler, but he's actually like a really good volume guy, man. He's got some serious output. He's got power too. He's well-rounded. Like in that Tim Means fight, like I know Tim Means officially got finished, but up until the finish, like Tim Means usually lights guys up until he gets clipped in the fights he loses. Like I thought Danielle Rodriguez was pretty damn competitive in the boxing exchanges with a guy like Tim Means. So I am impressed with Danielle Rodriguez, and I do think this is a spot where Dwight Grant's going to have to knock him out to win, man. I don't see Dwight Grant, landing enough volume to win on the scorecards unless he's able to kind of do nothing and then get a knockdown in the round, steal it that way, right? But I see D-Rod coming out here and kind of outworking Dwight Grant, and we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, I'm really excited about this matchup. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a mismatch because Maria Agapova is 9-1, and she's taking on Shayna Dobson, who's 3-4. And real quick, for those saying they feel bad for Shayna Dobson, I don't, because at least she gets to make one more UFC paycheck. You know what I mean? Like, you're a 3-4 fighter. You have no business in the big show, and you get to get paid one more time with that UFC check. So I'm excited for Shayna Dobson. After this, she'll go back to the regional scene, hopefully get some wins, make her way back. But listen, right now they got Maria Agapova minus 1,300. The comeback on Shayna Dobson is plus 925. I mean, look, we know Agapova is going to win, but is it going to be another first-round destruction? Is there a chance Shayna can last the full 3? Like, what do you think, man?
Bro, Shayna Dobson shouldn't be in the UFC. Look at her last 2 fights, 30-24. 24, that means every round was 10-8 against Mazo. And then Priscilla Cachoeira absolutely put her in the ground down there in Australia, man. So, her confidence is low, and she's not we know this. We know some mutual friends of hers, and they all say the same thing, man. She's in a spot where she kind of doesn't belong. So, Maria Agapova, man, I'm actually impressed, man. She's long, lefty, kind of got the Euro Joanna vibe. And, she comes out there, she throws heat. Her fight with Cortez, she lost. But, that first round, she was definitely having a lot of success. Cortez is a serious wrestler, though. Cortez, grew up with Henry Cejudo her whole life. So, she got kind of wrestle fucked those last 2 rounds. And, her fight with Hannah Cyphers absolutely ran through her really fast. So I see the same thing happening here, man. I see Agapova marching Shayna Dobson down and putting her in the ground. So, I'm going to go with Agapova to possibly get her second 50G. She's got a nice little story. I heard she was flat broke, and now she got, 150K check from finishing Hannah Cyphers. I see her getting another one by finish. So, let's go, Agapova.
I think the hardest thing to handicap about this fight is, like, is it going to be a head kick? Is it going to be a body shot? Is it going to be a rear naked choke? Like, Maria, like, do you want to come out here and just finish her in the first round? Do you want to get a little more octagon experience? Maybe mix in your wrestling, maybe try some new things out? Do you feel like spinning here? You want to try out your new flying knees? Like, go out there and do whatever you got to do. Like, try some new things. Have fun out there. You know what I mean? Because this is the easiest fight you'll ever have in your entire career. Because after you finish this girl, then we're going to start looking at these, top 20, top 15. And then we're going to see what she's really about. But here, go out there, have fun, style on her. I got Maria Agapova via vicious finish. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Mike Rodriguez. He's 10-4. And Marcin Prachnio is 13-4. Currently, they got Mike Rodriguez minus 230. The comeback on Marcin Prachnio is plus 190. Shaq, listen, man, this is interesting because I feel like Mike Rodriguez, man, he's got all the physical tools. He's got all the talent in the world. I mean, he's 6'4". He's got the 81-inch reach. Like, you've seen him knock people the fuck out with beautiful hands. You've seen the flying knees, but it's like everything has to be going perfect in this guy's life. In his personal life, for him to perform at the highest level. Do you think that even if shit's going wrong, that he can't come out here and style on a guy like Prachnio? Or do you think Prachnio's back is up against the wall to a point where he might come out here and get the upset?
Yeah, I like this fight, man, because both these guys, there's a chance we got jobs on the line, because Rodriguez was this big hype prospect, drops the one to Devin Clark, but he bounces back. But the last two, man, have been like, well, what's going on, Mike? I see why they call him slow. You can see he's a thinker, man. He's like one of those. He's like, who he reminds me of? Kennedy. He's
oh, yeah,
he's so big. he's so big, he's so tall, but he just like doesn't have that mean streak in him. They want him to use it, but he's a nice guy, man. He doesn't some of these big athletic freaks, man, they don't have that mean streak in them, man. And I think he's one of them because look, he's way better athletically, physically than Clark and John Allen and even his last fight he got steamrolled. I mean, Dawoon Jung's is no slouch, but the John Allen fight in particular, I know John Allen tested positive, but he's hurting John Allen on the feet, but the second it became a dogfight, man, he completely broke, and it was very alarming, man. He was giving up these easy takedowns, just looking completely lost. Even when he was on top in the top position, John Allen's out here elbowing this dude at will, and Mike Rodriguez I feel like he probably shouldn't have gotten that contract on Contender Series because the guy he knocked out, I believe, was knocked out like 3 of his last 4 fights prior to that, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel like this guy was put in a spot that he wasn't ready for. He's sink or swim now. Luckily for him, he's got Marcin Prachnio, who, let's just be honest here, kind of sucks. He's slow, he's stiff, he's chinny, he's too tense, he rushes everything. Granted, he has fought 2 very good guys in his UFC career, Smiling Alvey and Ankalaev. But man, I think like Rodriguez's athleticism, size, speed should run through Prachnio. My only concern is if it doesn't, who's tougher? You know what I'm saying? Because I have a feeling Prachnio, even though he sucks, he might actually have the toughness to want to do this. I mean, look at him; he's always got a growl on his face and shit, like fucking. So I think there's a chance Prachnio's tougher, but I just think like Mike, you should run through this fucking guy, bro. Hit him with the straight, hit him with the left high kick, hit him with the left knee, and put this guy in the ground, man. Stop thinking so much. I think this guy is a lesser than Alon and Dawoon Jung considerably. So I'm going to go with Rodriguez. I think he's the rightful favorite. I think this is a fight for him to win. It's just goodness. If this becomes a dog fight and they start wrestling and, they have to start thinking in there is a chance. Mike might be one of those lost cases, where you're just like, dude, like what's wrong with this guy, man? So, but I still think he's going to win this fight, man.
Real quick, shout out to the odds makers because they actually opened Dawoon Jung -400 against Mike Rodriguez, and everyone was acting like that line was an atrocity to the point where I think they might have flipped it. And it's like odds makers are right all along because that was a -400 type performance for Dawoon Jung. But anyways, back to this fight. So I read an interview with Mike Rodriguez because like I bet him against Adam Milstead, and I thought he showed moments against Devin Clark. It's just that when the going got tough, when he got pushed up against the fence, he had no answer. And then I bought the whole thing about how, now he's got this strength and conditioning program and this and that was the issue. And it's like, hey, it worked out against Milstead. And then against Alon, it was like, dude, like, what is going on? So I heard this interview with him. He said his last 2 fights, he's the kind of guy that everything's got to be going perfect for him outside the cage for him to perform inside. And I'm glad he admitted it. At least we're not just saying it. He admitted it himself. And he said, for this one, all the distractions are gone and he's focused. So maybe now he's going to come out here and do what he should do, which is knock this guy out. Because look, Prachnio, man, he doesn't seem that comfortable inside the octagon, man. He feels very tense, very awkward. He's been knocked out 2 fights in a row, but he's been knocked down 3 fights in a row. He got knocked down in his last regional fight. I think Rodriguez should starch him in the first. It's just, I agree. I don't know what happens if this becomes a dogfight. I have no idea. So hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully Rodriguez takes care of him quick. I'm going to go with Mike Rodriguez via first-round knockout because he's the much better fighter. He's the much more talented athlete. He's got all the physical tools you could hope for. It's just, does he have it up here? Hopefully this Saturday night he figures it out. We'll see what happens. I got Mike Rodriguez. Co-main event of the evening, also in the light heavyweight division, we got Vince St. Preux, OSP. He's 24-14, and Alonzo Menefield is 9-1. Currently, they got Alonzo Menefield -115, and Ovin St. Preux is +105. Well, Shaq, I got to be honest with you, man. I was kind of let down by Alonzo Menefield's last fight. I thought that not only was he going to pass the Devin Clark test, I thought he was going to knock his head off his shoulders, you know what I mean? But he didn't. But he did show some good things. You know, his takedown defense, I think, is on point. You know, he stuffed like 9 out of 10 takedowns. So that was a good sign, but his conditioning wasn't. And then I heard an interview with him with our good friend Adam Hunter. You know, shout out to Adam Hunter of the MMA Roasted podcast. Always been a Half the Battle supporter. We love that guy. And in that interview, Alonzo Menefield basically said that leading up to the Devin Clark fight, his girlfriend was giving him shit because he was out here skipping his runs. And, you know, he was undefeated at the time. He thought he was just going to come out here because his buddy Ryan's.
You know what happened in his fight prior to the Devin Clark fight? You know, he got a $50,000 bonus. You know, when these dudes get $50,000, they stop training.
Man. So basically, like, you know, his buddy Ryan Spann just, you know, absolutely schooled Devin Clark. So, you know, they're probably going to the gym telling him like, dude, this is easy work. You know what I mean? So he's probably skipping all his sessions. He admitted he was skipping his runs. His girlfriend was even giving him shit. So after that fight, it appears like he's been putting some extra emphasis on the conditioning. So at least he's trending in the right direction. And I know he's going to be improved from the Devin Clark fight. It's just that after the Devin Clark fight, because I fully expected him to pass that test. I was really let down that he didn't pass that test. I was like, dude, you're better than this guy. I kind of wanted to step down so he could go back out there, get a nice highlight reel knockout, get back on track. And he might still do that here. You know, OSP is getting up there in age, but man, OSP's a step up from Devin Clark. OSP's fought 5 rounds with John Jones. OSP's been in the top 10 pretty much his entire career. So you think Menefield's got enough to come out here and finish OSP at this point in his career?
Man, this is a good matchup because going into the Clark fight, I kind of reserved off Menefield just because, you know, Mamouche got no striking, Paul Craig kind of another loose striker, and you know he was able to get the knockouts, but they were real quick, man. So it was kind of like, what happens if he goes 3 rounds? He's got that very muscular, you know, physique, and you know when he went past 3 minutes, he gassed out bad. Now that the good point, luckily for him, there's a chance where, like you said, I mean, he got that 50G bonus from knocking out Paul Craig unconscious. And for whatever reason, man, I don't know what it is. These guys, some of these fighters, they get that bonus and then they just go, you start skipping fucking runs now? Like, what do you, like, like, you start skipping workouts and shit? But I guess he, like you said, him and Spann were probably joking around like, bro, this dude sucks, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what happened, man. So, yeah, I think OSP hasn't evolved. I feel like he's the same fighter he was, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. Certain guys, when he gets them on the mat, he'll be able to overwhelm. He still fights with his hands down, chin up. But, you know, he's still very savvy. And like you said, you would kind of want Zoe to take a step down. But instead, they kind of give him even higher ranked guy. And I'm not as down on Zoe as I was, because in that fight, man, he looked real slow and stiff. But like we said, the guy was skipping workouts. But I still think that even if he's at his best, he's still going to be a guy that somewhat slows down. But I actually think Zoe's got some good qualities. Like, he has the initiative to stuff the takedowns. He has the initiative to, like, not hang in there on the fence. Like, he was the one that was pressing Clark on the fence. It was just he was so tired that, like, Clark was just working him with the body shots, you know, against the fence. So I actually think Zoe can clinch. I think he can wrestle. I think it's just a matter of, like, he needs to be in the right place mentally. He can't, you know, underestimate his opponents. And OSP, man, it's interesting because I do think OSP's, you know, more experienced. And I will even say I think he's the better overall fighter. It's just that, you know, when you're, how old is he now? 35, 6? You know, he's getting up there in age, and it's like, you know, there's really not any improvement. I know he had that win over McCall, but at the same time, McCall's at 85, and McCall dropped him like 2 or 3 times. Like, you know, he's still getting dropped in a lot of these fights. I actually thought he dealt with Big Ben fairly well, you know, for a short notice heavyweight fight. But, man, I'm actually going to go with Alonzo, man. I think he's going to come in a little hungrier this time. I think he's probably a little embarrassed of how that last fight went, a little hungrier. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, Vince should be the favorite just based on accomplishments, based on the fact that, like, Alonzo really hasn't done. I mean, the Paul Craig is a legit win, I will say. But, you know, other than that, it's like, you know, we kind of haven't seen him push it hard for 3 rounds, you know, in comparison to a guy like OSP. So I'm gonna pick Alonzo for the win just because I think OSP hasn't evolved, and I think that he can push OSP backwards and land the harder shots, get off to a good lead in the first round, and maybe OSP, another guy who has a tendency to slow down in his fights, maybe he starts to to wilt and look a little old in there. But it's not too confident, man. But I'm gonna go with Alonzo for a late knockout win.
Man, this is a really tough fight for me to call. I feel like I can make a case for either guy, and I feel like this is a spot where you take the underdog. If Zoe's the underdog, I can make the case that, hey, he's on the up and up. He learned from his mistakes from the Clark fight. OSP has been kind of progressively on the decline. He can't take the same shot he used to. That's the argument I'd make for Alonzo. And then for Vince, I'd use the experience argument. The one time we saw Alonzo out the first round, besides that regional fight, I mean, he lost the subsequent rounds to, let's be honest, a weak opponent in the 205-pound division. I know a lot of people have more respect for Clark than I do. I'm not talking about as a person. I'm talking about as like a top 15 guy. I've never been that high on Devin Clark. I feel like if you're going to be a top 15 guy, you go out there and you beat Devin Clark and you knock him out, especially when you have the kind of power that Alonzo Menefield has. So even though it was admirable that he stuffed most of the takedowns and made it the 3-round distance, that wasn't good enough for me, man. I wanted a vicious knockout of Devin Clark, and I think he can get that knockout here. It's just, man, I'm not sure what happens if he doesn't. Like, even in that Paul Craig fight, like, I know he officially got the knockout, but I felt like up until the knockout, not much was really happening from his end. I felt like Paul Craig was going out there actually lighting Alonzo up with kicks, and then Paul Craig got carried away. He throws a spin, and Alonzo capitalized. So, I think OSP is too experienced.
I mean, both of his knockouts came off the dude spinning.
Yeah, I feel like Vince is a little bit too experienced for that kind of thing. I feel like he's going to kind of feel it out a little bit. And I know Alonzo has actually got really underrated grappling and good takedown defense, but I think somewhere along the way, Vince can level change, can get that double leg. And the Von Flue choke, it used to be a case where these guys attack guillotine and then they get Von Flue as a result. But Vince is so crafty with that shit that you don't even have to attack guillotine. He'll fucking put your arm in position and fucking Von Flue you anyways. So I could see that happening. But again, I'll make a case for either guy if they're the underdog, because this is a coin flip fight to me. But since Vince is the underdog, Vegas actually opened him the favorite. I'll side with Vegas, and I'll say that Vince should slightly be favored. But I do think Alonzo is a very talented guy, and I think he's got a bright future. And I think win, lose, or draw, he's going to move up the rankings, no doubt. I like the kid, but I'm going to go with Vince on this one to give him a minor setback. Main event of the evening in the bantamweight division, we got Pedro Munhoz. He's 18-4, and Frankie the Answer Edgar is 23-8. Currently, they got Pedro Munhoz minus 270. The comeback on Frankie Edgar is plus 248. Well, Shaq, we've arrived at the main event, and I mean, look, there's a third weight class that Frankie Edgar's competed in. So let's just get down to business on the chin talk. So there's two ways to look at it. Number one, he can't take the same shot that he used to take. That's the one opinion. The second opinion is that for him to drop to 35s, that's going to force him to work on his conditioning even more. And you already know conditioning is directly correlated to recoverability. So maybe he recovers faster now that he's running extra miles and shit. Do you think that that's the case, or do you think, hey, bro, you're almost 40, cut, it's almost over?
My bad. Yeah, man, this is a case of not even that, man. It's just, I'm going to go ahead and make my pick fairly fast here. I'm going to go with Pedro Munhoz by first round stoppage. And then, me and you were both on Zombie during Frankie's last fight. And I think we both predicted that Ortega would finish him too on the short notice replacement. And that's because Frankie Edgar has the same game in 2020 that he had back in 2010. I mean, it's the same pitter patter, point fighting type of style. And it's nothing different. I mean, when you prepare back then, in 2010, when you prepare for Frankie Edgar, that style was not too many guys were using that style. The main style out there was the, that grinding wrestler type of style. You know what I'm saying? And
the boxer wrestler.
Frankie, yeah, the boxer wrestling type of style. And, Frankie Edgar he's using that same style to fight these guys. And when's the last time Frankie Edgar looked good, man? We're talking about Yair Rodriguez, man. You know how long ago that was? Like, and I hate to discredit wins from people because he fucked Yair up and he taught Yair a very, very valuable lesson that night. But I mean, me and you both know what was going on behind. I mean, my boy Yair dumped Coach Izzy off and all this other shit, and he didn't want to pay these guys, and he decided to go in there with some fucking ragabunch team and got his ass whipped, man. So, I think that Frankie Edgar hasn't improved in a very, very long time. Even his win over Cub Swanson, like that fight was two old men fighting, and Cub didn't really want to fight. Cub on the tail end himself, and
every takedown.
Yeah, Cub Swanson didn't want to fight, man. Like, there's no other way to put it. And his fight with Max Holloway, man, I'll go ahead and say that was a waste of time. Like, there was honestly no point of doing it. Like, Holloway was coming off the Poirier fight. He was still kind of nervous about his chin, I'm assuming. And it was like Frankie didn't challenge him in any, like, that fight was 25 minutes it was like a sparring contest where Max was just slapping him around, man. It was like, what a waste of 25 minutes. We could have put somebody else in there. But, I think, Frankie hasn't improved. And Pedro, on the other hand, man, Pedro eats some shots. Pedro, will take a good lick here and there. But, man, has he ever been knocked out? No, man. The guy keeps moving forward every single time. You got it, man. This guy, even the Aljo fight, like, he lost. But, man, props to Aljo for maintaining his composure because, bro, some of them teeps to the gut, man, where I could feel him through the screen. I was like, oh, my God. Like, like other dudes, man. He has had other dudes folded up. Like, when he hit Brett Johns with those teeps, Brett Johns went immediately down and was like covering his face, asking for the ref to please save it. Yeah, Caraway, like those dudes, when they got hit with that teep to the gut, they were like, dude, please get me the fuck out of here. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I see Frankie Edgar coming out there doing his typical thing. I'm sure he looked in really good shape at Wayne's, but the skills, that pitter patter basic style that he has, it's not like he's gonna come out here and calf kick someone. I see the calf kick for Pedro playing a major weapon, man. Pedro's been getting a lot better at that calf kick. His pressure game, he gets these guys to get out of character and open up against him, and then he rocks them. And you know what happens when he gets your neck, man? It's pretty much game over. So I'm gonna go with Pedro Munhoz to come out here, put the pressure on Frank, and get him out of here fairly fast. Something similar to Zombie, maybe a little longer. Zombie was like a minute and some change. But I feel like Pedro Munhoz is just Frankie, to win this fight, man, he will have to pull off the weasel job of the century, man. Like, I just don't see like how Pedro would have to look like just completely off to lose this fight, in my opinion. And I see Pedro Munhoz pretty much doing whatever he wants, man. So I'm going to go with Pedro Munhoz by first round stoppage. I love Frankie Edgar, but, man, he hasn't improved. He hasn't evolved. And this is just father time catching up with him. I know he's looking for answers, dropping this weight class. But if he was going to do this, he should have done this, a long time ago, But, hey, man, it is what it is. So I'm going to go with Pedro Munhoz by first round stoppage.
Yeah, and look, shout out to Frankie Edgar. Back in the day, that fight against Tyson Griffin, one of the best fights I've ever seen in my life. And at the time, I was like, man, one of these two is going to be a future world champion. And it turned out to be Frankie Edgar when he dethroned BJ Penn. I mean, this ain't the BJ Penn that loses every fight. This was back then the top 3 pound for pound fighters were GSP, Anderson Silva, and BJ Penn. So he dethroned that BJ Penn. And to be a 5'6" guy winning a belt and defending it at 155 pounds is truly remarkable. It's something you never see in today's UFC lightweight division. Could you imagine a 5'6" guy even contending for a belt in today's UFC lightweight division? He just comes from a different era, man, and that's okay. The sport evolves, and we love Frankie. He's got a place in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it. But now, not only is he dropping the bantamweight, but he's dropping there against a serious killer. And I feel like the fact that he's dropping, people say this is natural weight class, but I feel like now he's giving away a lot of his advantages. What was so cool about him being the small guy at 55 and 45 was that he had a bit of a speed advantage over some of these guys. Now that speed advantage is completely gone because at bantamweight, they fight at such a fast pace that there's no breaks at bantamweight. You know what I mean? And when you talk about a world-class guillotine, you talk about Pedro Munhoz. When you talk about nasty calf kicks, you talk about Pedro Munhoz. One-punch knockout power, Pedro Munhoz. And stabbing front kicks, Pedro Munhoz. So I feel like this is going to be a rude welcome to the bantamweight division for the great Frankie Edgar. And I see Pedro Munhoz coming out here and stopping him. Look, I know that the one criticism we've had for Pedro Munhoz is sometimes he eats too many clean ones. It's just that he can take it and he can give it, whereas Frankie used to be able to take it. I mean, Frankie used to be a guy, you hit him with an aluminum bat, he's still walking forward, but you know, you take enough of those shots and you know your durability is going to wane, and it totally has. And he's not the same that he used to be. He's almost 40 years old. Got to give him a lot of credit for his great career. Consistently fought the toughest competition he could find. So I love the guy, but we don't pick with our hearts. We pick with our brains. I got Pedro Munhoz to not just defeat the great Frankie Edgar, but to finish Frankie Edgar. And yeah, man, I think he's going to, you know, move up and get another big fight. So I'm very excited for this one. I got Pedro Munhoz inside the distance. Well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So in your opinion, what is the fight to watch for UFC Vegas 7?
My fight to watch is my fight to watch is versus my bad. My fight to watch is going to be Hubbard versus Selecki, man. Now I know they might not be known for, you know, their the most vicious type of finishes, but man, Hubbard, he did made a kid quit, a college wrestler who was the favorite. You know, the kid was favored over Hubbard, so we can't take that away from Austin. And he was a decent sized favorite too. I think Hubbard was like plus 175 against the quitter. What you call him, Frodkov, Roshka, but Kwitkov. But you know, I think in Selecki, man, I want to see how he does, because a lot of people are criticizing his fight with Wyman in that third round, saying a better guy, you know, could crack him. And I know guys that know Selecki, we know guys that know Selecki that, you know, they think the same thing. So, and I think better is Selecki, man. I think the winner of this fight can get a decent fight next, you know, against someone good, and that's my fight to watch, man. I want to see if Hubbard can, you know, maintain that momentum off beating Kwitkov, and I want to see if Selecki can, you know, possibly get a first finish, man.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the fights to watch. For me, my fight to watch has got to be Danielle Rodriguez versus Dwight Grant. I mean, the fight just got booked today. Two very exciting welterweights. You know, obviously Dwight Grant known for his devastating knockout power. Danielle Rodriguez going out there with the serious output, the volume, and he's got finishing ability too. I feel like this is going to be a very exciting fight where these two are going to figure it out in the center of the octagon. And it's going to be very entertaining. So I'm going to go with Danielle Rodriguez versus Dwight Grant as my fight to watch. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Vegas 7?
My fighter to watch is going to be... Man, it's a tough one. I'll say Mike Rodriguez, man, because, you know, I feel like his job could possibly be on the line. And for a guy that, you know, had such a lot of hype coming in off the Contender Series, this would be, you know, somewhat of a big letdown if he were to lose this, man. And, you know, he says he's got his personal issues in order, and he's got the perfect opponent to get, you know, one of his vicious highlight reel type of finishes. And we know he's got the talent, man. So he's my guy to watch, man. I feel like it would be a big letdown if he took an L to Marcin. And Marcin's a tough guy as well. So we'll see what happens. So.
My fighter to watch is Alonzo Menefield. Look, he's coming off a very, you know, embarrassing loss to Devin Clark. Not embarrassing because he got stopped or anything, but embarrassing because it's like he knows deep down he was supposed to go out there and starch that guy and move up on the rankings. You know what I mean? And also the way Devin Clark fights, it's like, you know, I know with him and the homeboys, they're giving him shit for losing to that guy. I know that's a fact, bro. So.
Span and Jeff are making fun of him and shit.
Yeah, straight up, no bullshit. But if he can come out here and get a win over Vince, that'll kind of erase the Devin Clark fight, and it'll almost be like, you know, hey, it was just first L time. I wasn't taking it seriously, but look what happens when I do take it seriously. I come out here and starch OSP. So he's my fighter to watch because this is a big fight for him. He wins this, all of a sudden he might be in the top 15, and all of a sudden he might get another big fight next. So Alonzo Menefield is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down tomorrow. UFC Vegas 7, Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar. They can follow you at MMA Genius 05. They can follow me at Best Fight Picks. They can get our plays at bestfightpicks.com. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify. All the places where we are available. We truly appreciate all your support. We'll be back next week for Alexander Rakic versus Anthony Smith. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.